People have ever followed the sport. It was this sort of bizarre thing that nobody anticipated, where in this ex-slave economy, where the rich, white, wealthy planters brought their sport, where we were not expected to have even learnt the rules well or done well. And then something happened where we began to dominate. And in fact, we changed the way the sport was played by how good we were at it. So until we were so good and bowling balls so fast, no one wore helmets, for instance. Initially, the English objected and said, "You're bowling too fast." And no one could stop that, so then they had to get helmets. And so for like 2 decades, we dominated this sport, and it became such a huge part of our identity. So much so that I remember I took a trip to India when I was a student, and I went alone backpacking through India, and I was traveling second and third class, and everywhere I go, people would say, "Where are you from?" And they couldn't, well, actually they would say, "Where's your father from?" And I would say, "From the Caribbean," and "What? Don't know again." And then I'd say, "The West Indies," and they would go, "Ah, Viv Richards." And they would start to call all of the names of these great masters. And then I would open conversations. And really, it was my way of connecting with the world through this thing that we were so good at. But it was also bittersweet, because my first memory of a stance I took as a feminist was when I was about, I think it was 8 years old. Your memory starts to play tricks on you now. You're like, was I 5? Was I 3? I think I was about 8 years old when I went with my mother and my brother for her to sign my brother up to this cricket club. And since we were there and I was precocious and liked to be involved in everything, I said, "You know what, sign me up too." And I'll never forget, I have a vivid memory of the moment that the guy at the desk said, "Oh no, girls don't play cricket. We don't let girls into this club." And you're born and you're naive and you don't have a preconception of yourself until people start to tell you a narrative about yourself. And thankfully, these are the moments that make or break us. So you can be broken in that moment and start to question your essential attributes, right? So girls can't play cricket. Or it can make you, and you do what I did, which is to say, well, this is a stupid sport. And in that moment, I remember saying, well, I'll never play this sport then, as if I was doing the sport something. But if something is so closely connected to your identity, and then you are told that you are not a part of it, then that starts to play with your mind, right? And the way you write your own script starts to change. And so much of that, of our experiences as women, as our experiences of minorities, as outsiders, then hopefully influences us to do something to make that better for all the rest of us. So you add that to understanding, right? Get the data around what is happening so that you couple it with, well, this is not just my solitary experience. This is actually an experience happening to a lot of people who are like me on all sorts of different dimensions, and who have power to change the narrative. And then you end up in the job as Global Director of Diversity for Facebook. Because you want to make change. We recently hired McKinsey to do some research for us to understand why we were not seeing more women and ethnic minorities in the pipeline of talent in computer science jobs. So people often ask, do you have targets? Do you have goals? And I say, as many as possible. There's no number you can put on it that would satisfy me that we had gotten to somewhere. But when we look at the numbers of women graduating with CS degrees, it's really, really small. And we know then that we will not be able to achieve what I want, which is as many as possible, that for a company that represents the world, for a company who serves the world, where a quarter of the whole world is using this product and on this platform and using it to express their identity and to connect to people, and people are the most diverse ecosystem in the world, we will never build the products that are going to be relevant and delightful to the world, that will connect the world, if we do not have enough cognitive diversity in our ranks. If we do not have all of the different ways of thinking and approaching problems, different perspectives. So with a great underrepresentation in any area, we are vulnerable. So for us, it is an imperative to get as diverse as we possibly can be. And when I look at the pipeline, you say, well, how is that ever going to change? So we recently launched something called Tech Prep. And it's techprep.fb.com if you want to go and see it. And what Tech Prep does is it addresses the issues of underexposure, where we found through this research that women and ethnic minorities were less exposed to careers in computer science, had less information about what it was and how you got there and what you needed in terms of skills. And then their parents and guardians were less capable themselves of guiding them. So the research showed us, and this particular research was done in communities across the US, showed us that 77% of parents said, I have no idea how to guide my children into this profession. And it was 83% if those parents themselves were lower income. So now you have another layer of difference, right? Socioeconomic background. They just didn't even know how to help them get there. Women, girls, showed far less confidence in their ability to do well, and they had more negative perception of the profession than did boys or men. Ethnic minority girls had the least perception of their own ability and the most negative concept of the industry. And yet, parents were still confident their children could do whatever they set out to do. Another important note that came out of the research was that when asked what would motivate you to get into a profession, any profession, women and ethnic minorities, overwhelmingly over men and majority people, said, if what I was doing was going to make my community or the world better. So they're very mission-oriented and they want to help, right? We've had these experiences. We want to make sure other people don't have the same experiences. So you look at all that data and you think, what can you do? So Tech Prep brings exposure at scale because it's an online resource, right? Anybody can go and see it. We highlight, we profile women and ethnic minorities who are in the profession already, who are doing things like application engineer, which people would just not even know that existed as an option, right? What is that? What is a data analyst? What does that person do? And so we have people who look like them talking about what those jobs are. So that's one part of it, right? What is the job? How long does it take to get a degree? How much do you earn? We found that they thought that it would take more time to get a CS degree than to get a medical degree. It's just completely false, but because you don't know, ignorance allows all sorts of things to then cloud. And so we wanted to demystify, tell you what it was, all of the joy, all of the excitement you could get, and by the way, it pays well to get into this industry. And then we built a sort of roadmap in this tool for how you could get these skills. Because the other thing too is we know that you cannot rely on your school districts, for instance, to teach you all computer science. It's woefully undertaught everywhere. And now you can go online and find many open source ways to learn the skills. So we showed people how to get there. If you are a beginner, if you are moderately skilled, right? These are resources that you can use to get those skills. So Tech Prep attempts to do something to take one obstacle out of the way to increase that pipeline. But then once people even get into the profession, there is the other issue, which is inclusion, right? So you're already, let's say you have a degree in something and you're seeking to get a job in something. Research around the world has showed that if you are a woman or an ethnic minority, it's going to be much harder for you to get a job, even if you do have the same skills already. In 40 studies across Europe, including 2 in the Netherlands, they found that if you use anonymous applications, if you're a woman or ethnic minority, you're much more likely to get a job, even though you have the same skill as a man or a majority person. In France, studies showed that you were 12% less likely to get it if you're a woman with the same application, same skills. If you have a Moroccan-sounding name in France, there's 4 times more chance that you will not get the job than if you had a French-sounding name, even though you have the same resume and the same skills. 4 times the difference, right? Just based on who you are, not based on what you know and what you can do. So, you know, there's a lot of challenge. There's a lot that we need to overcome. But yet, I go to work every day really hopeful, really excited. And that is because of 3 things. One is that I believe technology is a leveler. In the same way that we built Tech Prep, and I now know that as long as you have a connection to the internet, you can go and use this to help you get somewhere. We now have more tools than ever before to reach people, to connect people. and to make the access more equal for everyone to learn the skills. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's a supply and demand system that is working in our favor. So in Europe, there are going to be about 800,000 jobs, I think, that will not be able to be filled in the next few years in programming. In the US, there's somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million jobs that we cannot fill with kangaroos. They simply are not live beings of any gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical ability, veteran status, anything to fill the jobs. So it is in our favor, right? This is a moment in time where if we have the skills, we stand the best chance of getting the jobs because they need people to fill them. And then the third thing is that since we know that what motivates women and ethnic minorities is being able to serve a community, if we change the narrative around what technology is, if we emphasize how much technology can do to make the world a better place, it is more likely that they will want to get into the profession. So at Facebook every day, I'm excited because I know that what we are doing is making the world better by connecting people, by connecting the whole world. And we try to give that narrative room to breathe and to grow everywhere we do, so that women will feel that this is, and will know that this is their narrative too. And we'll see that there is a space here. And if we can combine all those things, we take advantage of those opportunities, I think we can change the trend. And we can get as much representation as we could possibly achieve and make the whole world better together. Thank you very much.